So yeah, I actually bought and believed the lore that this movie gave me. I thought that was pretty convincing. Not for 1 second could I believe that these two had any kind of romantic relationship ever. Hey there folks, sorry this review's coming about a month late. I saw this movie opening weekend when it came out a few weeks ago, and well, since then life has really been kicking me in the nads, so I apologize. I'll try to get more on top of it. Alright folks, so it looks like we got a new werewolf movie out here, and this looks like to be a reimagining of the classic film, The Wolfman. Wolfman 2025 is directed by Leigh Whannell, who also directed one of my favorite newer sci-fi films, Upgrade, and also directed the newest Invisible Man film. Leigh Whannell has tackled many horror genre and has been very successful, but can he pull off werewolves? Let's talk about it. We are introduced to our main characters Blake, his wife, and his daughter as they're traveling to the countryside because they just received news that Blake's father has passed away, and they're going out to the countryside to clear out his old house. We learn in the beginning of the film that Blake did not have the greatest relationship with his father, and he's trying to correct those mistakes and have a great relationship with his own family. And whoa, what do you know? Surprise, surprise! Even though Blake and his family are driving a big giant U-Haul through the woods, it still manages to get attacked by a mysterious... And unfortunately, the vehicle is compromised and left on the side of the road, and Blake does suffer from a scratch from the mysterious monster, but luckily him and his family manage to go through the woods and find his childhood home and hang out and hide out there. And while taking shelter in the cabin in the woods, Blake is starting to notice he's not feeling quite like himself. There are definitely some questions that need to be answered. Will the family survive? Whatever creature is outside stalking the house, will it break in? Blake is now infected with some sort of mysterious disease. Will it kill him? Or will it transform him into whatever's outside trying to get in? So I mentioned this earlier. I am a big fan of writer and director Leigh Whannell. I think he gave us one of the greatest newer sci-fi movies in a long time, which is Upgrade. And honestly, I did enjoy his take on the new Invisible Man film that was actually released right before everything closed down due to COVID. And if you don't know by now, I love a good werewolf movie, especially when it comes to the practical makeup effects, even going back as far as the old classic black and white films. But I also will admit there are more bad werewolf films out there than there are good. I've also accepted in my mind and in my heart, we will never get an amazing werewolf movie like American Werewolf in London ever again. Hell, we will probably never get anything like this ever again. And in my older years, I definitely accepted the fact that we probably peaked as far as werewolf films in the 80s, but don't get me wrong, we've had some sprinkles of some pretty decent werewolf movies here and there. Prior to its release, I was very excited and I had very high hopes for The Wolfman from 2010, but it actually ended up leaving me very, very disappointed. The only two positive things I could say about that remake were actually the casting choices and the practical makeup effects by Rick Baker. So when I heard they were going to remake The Wolfman again, and originally it had Ryan Gosling attached to the project, and it had Leigh Whannell to direct the film, not going to lie, I was definitely curious. But unfortunately, Ryan Gosling had to leave the project due to, conflicting scheduling, and who knows, maybe there was something else about the movie that made him want to leave. So I'm going to start with the positives on this movie, and I will say, the locations for this film are great. The outdoor locations for this film are amazing. They make a great set piece. We have great slow tension build, especially between Blake and his father, who is very, very controlling. Blake and his father are like the total opposites. There's like this forced father and son bonding thing that they're doing, going to the great outdoors, trying to hunt some game, but at the same time, there's a sense of dread in the air because you know that there's something out there that's hunting them too. There is some great camera work being done and it's building tension because we know that there is something out there lurking in the woods, watching them, hunting them. And the greatest part about it is we don't see anything. It's all camera work and soundtrack. The camera work in the beginning of the film is really good because we're not seeing anything at all except our two main characters, nature, and that's pretty much it. Maybe some POV shots here and there. But the sound design in this opening scene is really good because you're just hearing like nature sounds, birds chirping, birds cackling, the sound of water in the background. Then you start hearing like twigs breaking, branches breaking. Then you hear like the slow guttural growl. And what I really liked about the sounds of the monster and the low guttural growls, it didn't sound like it was like stock used sound effects, like kind of like what I had a problem with the Wolfman in 2010. The sounds of the monster in this film actually sounded pretty unique to this film, and I give them a lot of credit for the way it sounded. Like, I give this movie a lot of credit for treating this more like a disease film. Once you're infected, you start to kind of lose yourself a little bit. Like, things start getting impaired, you start to see things like in wolf vision, and then when people start talking to you, you're not able to understand what they're telling you. Like, all of that is a really cool, good, new idea, like a slow metamorphosis that we get to experience with the character, but outside of that, they really don't do anything with it. Like, that whole idea of like a creature outside stalking the house, trying to break in, while someone inside the house with you is slowly transforming into one of those creatures that's outside, kind of gives off a vibe like a zombie film, and that part of the film really works pretty well, and I thought that was actually pretty cool. And like I said earlier, this movie just doesn't do anything with those cool ideas that it introduces. The werewolf that's outside stalking the house is basically there just for jump scares. We've seen this werewolf punch its fist through a truck windshield, yet it will never attempt to break through a house window, let alone kick down a door. Which brings me to the major problem that I had with this film. So, this movie got me to believe that there's some sort of backwoods disease, kind of like rabies. Once you get infected by it, you will have wolf-like features and start attacking people. So yeah, I actually bought and believed the lore that this movie gave me. I thought that was pretty convincing. Not for 1 second could I believe that these two had any kind of romantic relationship ever. Like, if you would have told me she was his older daughter, I'd be like, oh, okay. Or hell, if you would have told me that these two were brother and sister, or in fact, if they were twins, I would believe that more because they had the exact same freaking haircut. But as far as any kind of chemistry, these two have exactly
0.0.
And I know someone's going to argue and say, well, their characters were actually having problems in their marriage and that's why it comes off that way. Well, I'm here to tell you this. It did not look like these two ever had any encounters until this film started rolling. And because of the lack of chemistry with these two characters, I felt absolutely nothing for them or their relationship. A good example of how to do it right would be, well, American Wolf in London. We meet our main character and he very quickly begins to fall for the nurse that's taking care of him at the hospital. We get to know our main characters well enough, we get to see the relationship grow, so by the time we get to the ending, it's very sad and it's very tragic. Another example of great chemistry and character development, not to mention you're feeling something for these characters, and it has a very tragic ending, and I think it's a little more relevant with Wolfman 2025, would have to be David Cronenberg's remake of The Fly. We get to see our main characters having a romance, and then it takes a drastic turn when Seth Brundle starts experiencing mutation and his body starts falling apart. In the film, not only is he losing his physical self, but he's also losing his mental sanity. But at the end of the film, he does realize he's a monster and needs to bring it all to an end and asks Ronnie to give him peace. And Geena Davis does such a remarkable job as far as selling this sad, tragic ending. And don't forget, she's doing all this in front of a puppet. Both American Werewolf in London and The Fly remake do a really good job as far as making you feel something for these characters. Now, Wolfman 2025?
You don't have it.
With Blake's transformation, it is a very slow process. We're watching it in real time, so we get to see it as an audience, but then we also get to see it from his point of view, so that buildup is growing and growing, and you're expecting a great end result, but you're more or less getting something more like this. Like, don't get me wrong, I think the idea of a rabid, mangy wolf is actually a pretty good idea, but as far as the end result, it was definitely a swing and a miss for me. Like, what this movie was going for, as far as the look of the werewolf, I would have been a little bit more accepting if it was more like the film Where. Hell, I'd even be more okay if they just threw some mutton chops on him like they did with Jack Nicholson in the movie Wolf. They really try to sell the movie like on this big climactic ending, but the ending of the film is more of a whimper. Like I said, we got some really good ideas in the film, they just don't do anything with them. We got some great locations, we got some really good sound designs, and we got a twist in the movie, but you could see that twist coming from the beginning of the film. Honestly, I don't think the title works for this film. I think if they had a different title, it probably could have worked. Also, the film either feels like it's miscasted, or maybe it was just rushed. My rating for the Wolfman 2025, I would say just stream it for free. It's not worth seeing on the big screen or paying any money for it. Wolfman 2025. I did not hate this movie at all. Like I said, it had some really, really good ideas that I could get behind. Like I said earlier, I've seen some great werewolf movies and some great werewolf designs, but I've seen a lot more terrible werewolf films, so I really wasn't hyped for this movie, but I was a little disappointed because of who our director was, or is. Alright, Wolfman 2025. Did you see it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you expecting anything great? Please comment below and let me know. Breaking news. Robert Eggers, the director of The Witch and Nosferatu 2024, is set to write and direct a new werewolf film called Werewolf. Okay, I was about to make this statement, maybe we should stop making werewolf movies for a while until we get it right, but seeing this right here, I'm kind of excited and actually a little hopeful. Makes me think maybe makeup artist Rick Baker should come out of retirement and work on this movie, then retire. Can you imagine if makeup artist Rick Baker came out of retirement to work on this movie with his stamp and approval? Like I said, I love the practical makeup effects for Wolfman 2010, but that's pretty much it. But Robert Eggers could be the one to make a werewolf movie solid all the way through. We shall see. Alright, so that was my review for Wolfman 2025 and some breaking news about a new werewolf movie coming out soon. So please comment below and let me know what you think. And please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'm Mike the Movie Misfit, and I'll see you at the movies.
I need sons and daughters. And you, my love, are the one who is going to give them to me.
I suppose we're gonna live in a warehouse.